Yeah. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to County Hall and Place and Resources Overview, Thursday, 5th of October. My name's Carol Jones. I represent Sturminster Newton. I'm chairing today, which I'm terribly excited about. As members speak, we'll just ask them to tell you their names so you know who they are, where they represent, and so on. We've got Councillor Laura Beddoe online who will be able to come in at any point. She unfortunately has COVID at the moment, so we need to be very gentle with her. So today, we have attending today, we've got Jonathan Mayer, our Director for Legal and Democratic Services, Lindsay Watson, otherwise known as Lovely Linz at the front, who is our Senior Democratic Services Officer. We've got Janet Moore, our Service Manager for Environmental Protection, Jane Williams, Team Leader, Environmental Protection, and Graham Duggan, Head of Community Protection. So I think we're well covered in that respect. Please remember microphones and introducing yourselves. So moving on, item 1 on our agenda is apologies.
Chairman, apologies from Councillors Alford and Jesperson.
Thank you very much. Okay, minutes of our last meeting. Is everybody in agreement that they are a true and correct record, and may I sign? Val? Sorry, Councillor Apothecary, I must be more formal on these occasions. Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. I'd like to declare an interest that I have dogs, and in actual fact, I've got a new puppy called Monty. He arrived on Saturday, razor-sharp teeth. I had a dispensation at our previous meetings, but I think everybody that declared an interest before needs to do so again. Thank you.
Yeah, Chair, it's Councillor Lesford, Dorchester West. I'd like to declare an interest as I am a dog owner as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Rowe from Coal Hill, Wimborne, Minster East. I have a dog.
Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Chair. Councillor Ryan Hope, Western Ward in Weymouth, and I also have a dog.
Thank you. So,
yeah, good morning, Chairman. I'm Jonathan Mayer, Director of Legal and Democratic. If I can just confirm that all of those councillors who have declared an interest this morning, the dispensations that you were previously given carry forward to this meeting, and in fact they extend for the life of the council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Councillor Coombs, your life is empty without a dog, and you, Councillor Apothecary. You can borrow mine any time you like. 3 cats, fair play. Okay, item 4, Chairman's update. I don't have anything to say at this moment. So we move to item 5, which is public participation. We have a question to come in from Councillor David Sarson, who I believe you are here. Thank you. Use your microphone and take it away.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And I'd like to thank you for allowing me to talk at this beautiful building. Yes, David Sarson, Mayor of Lyme Regis. I would like to give a response from Lyme Regis Town Councillors to the proposed removal of the restriction to have dogs on leads on Lyme Regis Front Town Beach in winter. Lyme Regis Town Councillors would like to make the strongest possible objection to this proposal, which is against our recommendation. We ask Dorset councillors to reconsider this decision. The office's recommendations prioritise the desire of a relatively small number of dog owners to exercise their dogs off-lead in winter on the front beaches, over the need of the families of Lyme Regis and our visitors. This small sandy beach and the pebble beach are the safe areas in Lyme for young children, the elderly and others wanting to dig and play on the beach and paddle and swim in the water without fear of being knocked over or frightened by dogs or finding dog excrement and urine polluting the sand, pebbles and water. The front beaches are used for these leisure purposes throughout the year, I must emphasise. As a town council, we receive regular complaints about the behaviour of dogs and their owners in the town. And on the beach, in particular, people complain about dogs being out of control and frightening and aggressive to young children and older people. The light of recent dog attacks in the national and local news, it seems absurd to be removing the on-lead restriction, given that most local people voted for a total ban all year round for the front beaches in 2020. At the time, Dorset Council's PSPO to allow dogs on the beach on leads in the winter months seemed a sensible compromise. Off-lead dogs enjoy racing and playing with others and can be very boisterous. They also go into the sea where owners often throw large stones and objects for them to chase. Lyme's town beaches are well populated by families, I emphasise again, all year, and not appropriate for this. There are two major considerations. One, the physical safety of people, especially small children and older people. Two, the other is the possibility of infection as feces and urine are deposited on the beach. Often it is claimed that feces and urine will wash into the sea, but the top halves of the two man-made front beaches are not reached by high tide, so will never be washed cleaned by the sea. The Town Council has a responsibility to deliver the best possible care to the people of Lyme and their friends and family, as well as ensuring a good tourist experience. My question, given that the officer recommendation goes against the strong view of the Town Council and ward member, if agreed, will Dorset pick up the responsibility for cleaning the beaches and the public liability should any beachgoer be attacked, injured or worse by dogs off lead on our busy front beaches? Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much. We also had a question from Councillor Brian Larkin, but I don't believe he is here, and the same response will go to him as in writing as will be given now. Councillor Beddoe, are you giving the response? Yes? She's nodding. Let's do it.
I'm nodding. Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor, for your question. I actually have a dog too. I have a similar dispensation. So in response to your very thorough and careful statement and question, the recommendation for the winter restriction to be removed is based on the findings from the public consultation. So a lack of evidence to substantiate the need to impose this restriction. We want to provide more consistency across the council area. And we do have a concern about access for those with impaired mobility. So unfortunately, we did make a mistake in the report. The correct figure for no winter restriction in the 2020 public consultation should read 49%. So with 54% in favour of no restrictions this year, there is more support from the public for no winter restriction. The question relating to an all-year-round ban was not given as an option in the 2020 public consultation. We need to remember that allowing a dog to foul without proper removal is an offence under the order. Both the Town Council and Dorset Council officers are authorised to serve fixed penalty notice should an offence be witnessed. We know that's difficult to do, but they do have that authorisation. Dorset Council is the principal litter authority for the area by virtue of provisions in the Environmental Protection Act 1990. So we have the responsibility for clearing litter, which does include dog faeces. The Lyme Regis Town Council website already acknowledges this on its waste and recycling page and directs users to the DC website. So the introduction of the new PSPO won't change that. I think it's worth remembering as well that dogs must not be allowed to be dangerously out of control in a public place, which means injuring someone or making someone fear they may be injured. This applies to any breed or type of dog. Owners or whoever is in charge of the dog at the time who allow a dog to hurt a person or other dog may be prosecuted, disqualified from owning a dog. Penalties are also available in situations where a dog is allowed to be dangerously out of control and a person is in fear of being injured, even without any injury occurring. So your dog must be under control at all times. Liability for an injury would rest with the owner or the person in charge of the dog. The victims of dog attacks can claim compensation if the dog owner is found to have been negligent, which does include the inability to control their dog. And I just want to remind the Town Council that if significant concerns about public safety do arise, we can make variations to this order. So I hope that's helpful, and please excuse my slightly croaky voice.
Thank you very much indeed. As I say, that response will be sent to Councillor Brian Larkham as well. We do have some statements, but members have these within the pack and they are available online, so we're not going to read those out. We go to item 6, which is questions from members, and we have question from Councillor Belinda Borden. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Belinda Borden, Ward Member for Lyme Regis and Charmouth. So I'll read out my long preamble and question. I have since spoken to the officers, and there's something that I'll correct after I've read it. So Dorset Council has singled out Lyme Regis's front beaches as the only ones not recommended for inclusion in the restrictions to keep dogs on leads during the winter. Excluding only Lyme's beaches, this is the bit that doesn't quite make sense now, will cause confusion to those visiting Dorset because maintaining the status quo was one of the aims to provide consistency across the council area. The recommendation seems to be based on a 54% majority, including visitors. It flies completely in the face of the Town Council's request for an all-year-round ban, and from me as ward member arguing that the current restrictions remain. Our opinions were formed through local knowledge of our situation, our residents' and visitors' feedback, and our considered views as responsible councillors. For example, on the doorstep, I received only complaints about dogs. My inbox similarly has heartrending stories about the impacts that dogs' behaviour has on my constituents' health and well-being. The Town Council regularly receives complaints about unruly dogs and dog mess. I'm not the only person who feels totally overwhelmed, even as a dog lover, by the number of dogs on the beach, and I would not be able to take my grandson on the beach if they are allowed to run loose again. He would simply not be safe. I genuinely do not understand why dogs are being prioritised over our children, and why, in the light of both local and national tragedies currently being reported in the press, that Dorset Council would choose to put my grandson, my constituents and our visitors at risk in this way. I'm seriously concerned that the decision is based on a narrow majority, which includes visitors, even though I had warned the team conducting the survey that there was a highly organised pro-dog lobby group here, with several Facebook pages to push the case for dogs to run free on our front beaches all year round. I feared that the silent majority would not be heard above the noise of the pro-dog lobby, which also benefited from a prominent shop in town directing detailed guidance for the survey. It seems I was right. This recommendation is based on a questionable assumption about the lack of alternative places to take dogs off lead, and an utterly false premise that our beaches are not busy with families and children from October to April. We are busy all year round, particularly any sunny weekend, since Lyme attracts huge numbers of day visitors from far afield. Both councils' car park statistics should prove that. We have family festivals and activities all year round and attract more daily adult swimmers during the winter, since Lyme is more sheltered than Seaton, West Bay and other nearby beaches during the winter. So my question is, please could Dorset Council provide the evidence for its assumptions to base the decision on such a narrow majority, achieved through an organised campaign and including visitors, deemed acceptable enough to justify dismissing the evidenced concerns of the locally elected representatives? And can the PSPO consultation responses for Lyme split the 54% into numbers of DT7 residents and others, so that we can see how my constituents voted? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Beddow, are you coming back on Councillor Borden's question?
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
will. I will do, Chair, and I'll ask Janet Moore to come in as well, if I may, with a little bit of detail. Can I start by thanking Councillor Borden, because you know, Belinda, you really do engage and you really do represent your communities so well, and your questions and engagement, you know, by email or by phone is always really fair and sensible. So I just wanted to start by saying thank you for that. So how so the public consultation was promoted in accordance with normal practice. So we had press, social media releases, we had coverage in local and national, local and regional TV, sorry, not national, newsletters, posters, councillor engagements. We also sent direct messages to 117 residents who had requested prior notification or who we had been in contact with through the last consultation. We used a lot of avenues to promote the consultation, so we tried to ensure that the reach was such as to minimise the risk of bias for any particular outcome. And I know that locally elected representatives made representation through that process. The 2023 consultation showed more support for dogs to be unrestricted in the winter period than in 2020. So the removal of the dog on lead restriction would harmonise provisions for beaches over the winter period across Dorset Council. And I think that, Belinda, that's what, sorry, Councillor Borden, that's what you were referring to, was the harmonisation. So it doesn't single out Lyme Regis. Janet, if I may, I think Janet's going to comment on the postcode part of the question, because we didn't require people, I believe, to put in their postcodes. So if I could hand across, Chair, with your permission, to Janet Moore, who will be able to comment, I think, a bit further.
Thank you. Janet, come in.
Thank you, Chair. So we made a decision earlier on not to break down the statistics between visitors and residents. We just looked at the overall majority. A couple of reasons really is just to simplify the whole process, because if we'd done it for all the beaches, we did recognise that it was done in 2020, but we didn't want to do it this year. With the guidance of our consultation colleague. People weren't required to put their postcode in, so the accuracy, I guess, could be argued. And so this was one of the reasons. I have asked my colleague whether she can provide those statistics, but at the moment I haven't actually got any information back that I can share with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Beddoes, did you want to come back, or have you completed your session there?
I think that's all. I just would could Janet highlight, if you wouldn't mind, Janet. It's difficult because I'm remote, but no one wants this. Janet, if you could just perhaps highlight the issue about the harmonisation, just for the benefit of any public or you know, interested people. So the winter restrictions are harmonised. If you could just sort of cover.
Yeah. So at the moment, Lyme Regis, Front Town Beach, is the only area that has a winter restriction of dogs on lead. The other beaches don't have that. So the idea behind the consultation was to try and provide more harmony, so it's easier for people to understand what the rules are, and we don't have an outlier on, in the Dorset area.
Thank you. We seem to have something flying above us as we speak. So, Councillor Borden, you'll be able to come in on the debate as we get to that, which we're about to go into now. So we're coming to item 7, which is the report on the findings on our public consultation for the dog-related public spaces protection order and draft order. Now, Janet will be presenting this, but the way that we'll manage it is that as we go through the report, once we come to the areas starting at 1.2, we're going to take them one by one. And I would just remind people that we are not a decision-making committee. We will recommend, we will make comments, but the final decision will be given to Cabinet, at their meeting in November, I believe. So, Janet, would you like to take this forward? Thank you.
So thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. My name is Janet Moore, and I'm the Service Manager for Environmental Protection, and the Dog-Related Public Spaces Protection Order sits within my service area. The current order expires at the end of the year, and a new order is required. There is a statutory requirement to undertake a public consultation before any new order can be made. You may remember that the proposals for the consultation, together with the draft questionnaire, were brought to committee back in June. The consultation has now closed, having lasted 10 weeks and finished on the 25th of August. This report provides the officer a recommendation for retaining or removing the requirements that are currently in place and which will form the provisions for the new order. The new order will be enacted on the 1st of January 2024. Along with the report, you will also have received the consultation findings report, which is Appendix A, the draft order, Appendix B, the equality impact assessment, Appendix C, and an infographic which hopefully helps summarise the main findings of the consultation. That's Appendix D. A dog-related public space protection order is the means by which we encourage responsible dog ownership by putting restrictions in place to reduce the risk of fouling, dog bites and other aggressive behaviours. At the same time, we need to recognise the welfare needs of the dog and the positive contribution that dogs bring to society. In this way, we provide a public space that is welcoming and can be enjoyed by all. It is a restrictive order, so should only be used where we believe there is or is likely to be an unreasonable, persistent or continuing detrimental effect. So the consultation was developed with oversight from our legal and communication and engagement colleagues and was promoted in accordance with our usual practice. As Laura has mentioned, we tried to ensure that the reach was such so as to minimise the risk of bias from any particular outcome. The response rate was high at 4,221, and although this is roughly half of that of 2020, there is statistically a 95% confidence level in the response rate, which means that the picture given will be an accurate reflection of the thinking by Dorset population as a whole, if that makes sense. There were just over 30 questions in the questionnaire. A number could be avoided if the respondents felt it wasn't appropriate to them. We had to set some parameters around the consultation questions to avoid unreasonable or impractical expectations being set. The majority of restrictions are now well embedded and residents know what the local rules are. Signage is displayed in prominent positions and we have information for visitors and holiday makers on our website. So our starting point was to design the questions so that outcomes provided a level of harmony and consistency across the council whilst maintaining the status quo as much as possible. To offset any limitations that could arise from limiting the questions, we also included an open text box at the end of the consultation. A don't know option was included in many of the questions. This is usual practice and it avoids the respondent having to choose an option when they don't have a particular preference either way. In terms of responses, just over 80% of responses were from local residents and 16% from visitors, so a good resident representation. From the 37 councillors who answered the survey, 20 declared the name of the councils they represented. So the questions were broadly divided into 5 main areas. And it should be noted that unless the specific provision has been included as a consultation question, it cannot be included in the final order. So the main areas were the requirement to remove and properly dispose of dog faeces, the length of a dog lead when required by a restriction, restricted access for dogs on marked sports pitches and enclosed children's play areas, having dogs on leads in specific public places, and the exclusion of dogs on named beaches and adjacent pathways. There are exemptions to some of the orders for assistance dogs, so the exemption doesn't apply to dogs on leads, though. The definition of an assistance dog has been redefined in line with the latest legal guidance and the advice of our Equalities, Diversity and Inclusion Officer. It now includes attributes that the dog must be displaying at the time of being walked. The provisions and definitions are given in section 1 of the draft order. An assistance dog does not necessarily need to be visibly identifiable, but must be highly trained, i.e. not wander freely, but walk, sit or lie next to its owner. I'll now go through each recommendation and give the officer recommendation. Sorry, each proposal and give the officer recommendation. As suggested, if we can have the discussion and the decision after each recommendation, then we can focus our thoughts on that particular proposal. I'll give the reference number for each proposal as it relates to the report, and any map references will be made where appropriate, which can be found in the draft order Appendix B. Okay, let's start.
Can I just ask a question? Yes. 2/3 of the people with dog owners, has the statistical answer been corrected to reflect that in your 54% majority who want dogs to be allowed to run wild on the beach?
That wasn't the advice of an engagements officer, so that wasn't the advice of the consultation and engagement officer, so it hasn't, the weighting hasn't changed to reflect that.
Statistically, if I had 2/3 majority of a certain group of the population answering questions, I would adjust the result to allow for the fact that 2/3 were obviously going to be in favour, or we presume that dog owners would be in favour of letting their dogs run on the beach. I can understand it's a very difficult question for yourselves. I think your department runs an excellent service, and I can see the quandary and the difficulties in resolving this one. So I just wanted to ask that question.
Beddoes is online and wants to come in on this one, so come in, Laura.
Thank you. I just wanted to be really, really clear. The councillor just made a comment that dogs should be allowed to run wild. Off the lead is not the same as wild. Even if a dog is off the lead, it must still be under control, so verbally, must have recall. So that's a really, really important distinction. And the use of the term wild is probably not helpful in this debate. So I just wanted to jump in with that, but thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Janet, did you want to come back in at this point here? Graham Duggan, come in.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to comment that that wouldn't be a normal practice, a normal guidance from our consultation officer in how we would run and manage a consultation such as this. The data is analysed on a straightforward count of the feedback and the votes for, the votes again, if you so like. They are not weighted in a consultation like this, and that's not a suggested or a requirement in the statutory guidance for the consultation, I'm afraid.
Thank you very much. So, Janet, if we carry on, are you starting at 1.2?
Yes. Can I also mention actually that wasn't undertaken in the 2020 consultation either. So if we start with 1.2.1, which is the clearance of dog fouling and its proper disposal. So specific comments about fouling can be found on page 39 of the consultation findings report, Appendix A as well. So 99% of respondents agreed that the offence should remain. And please note that this is the only provision we have that creates an offence for dog fouling. So the recommendation is for inclusion in the order.
Thank you very much. I would imagine everybody is in agreement without anything. Yes. Are you quite happy we move on from there? Thank you. Janet, so we're going on to 1.22.
Yes, so this is for maximum lead length at 2 metres when required. Specific public comments on leads can be found at page 38 of Appendix A. This received significant support at 82%, which is more support than in 2020. Recommended for inclusion.
Thank you. Again, does anybody have any comments? We're happy with that. Thank you. Moving on to 1.2.3.
So this is dog on lead by direction of authorised officers. The authorised officers are either officers of our animal welfare dog control team or trained officers working for the town and parish councils. 96% were in favour with significant support from both dog and non-dog owners. Recommended for inclusion.
Thank you. Does anybody want to come in on this one? No? 1.3, we're going on to 1.31 now.
Dogs on lead at all times where dogs are permitted in municipal cemeteries, churches and graveyards. 91% were in favour, which is more support than 2020. Recommended for inclusion.
I see consent in the House. Move on. Thank you.
1.3.2, dogs on leads at all times, public formal gardens. 80% wanted this retained, again with significant support from the dog owning community. Recommended for inclusion.
Thank you very much. No dissent. Move on.
1.3.3, dog on lead in council-owned allotments. 75% of respondents wanted this retained. The majority of dog owners answering the question also supported this. Recommended for inclusion.
Councillor Hope, come in.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm just wondering, obviously, allotments are managed by our town and parish councils. I just want to check, I presume they were also in support of retaining that restriction.
Janet, are you looking to the ceiling?
It's very difficult to tell from the responses that we had. All the comments from the town and parish councillors are obviously at the back of the appendix. We haven't done an analysis of which town and parish councils voted for or voted against it, but obviously they all had an opportunity to respond to the consultation.
I see Councillor Hope nodding. Thank you very much. So we'll include that. Let's move on to the next one, Janet.
So it's 1.3.4, dog on lead at council-owned car parks. 92% in support, which is higher than 2020, and again with significant agreement from dog owners. Recommended for inclusion.
Thank you. That all seems... Oh, Councillor Tarr.
So I've just, my computer's, it's gone off the page. That's the Rodwell Trail from Weymouth to Portland. Okay.
Thank you. So, no, right, lovely. That's fine for inclusion. So we go to 1.3.5.
Which is dogs on leads at all times within 5 metres of marked sports pitches. And these are marked sports pitches. Received significant support with 80% in favour. A majority of dog owners who responded were also in support. Recommended for inclusion.
Graham, did you want to come in here?
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to object. That would be a little odd. I just wanted to point out that last time around, when the dog-related PSPO was considered back in 2020, this was quite contentious provision because of we're not talking about dogs actually on sports pitches, but within 5 metres. But there's a really good public health reason for this. in terms of dogs straying onto the sports pitches, and then particularly young children picking up dog feces and fouling when dogs are on leads around grassed areas. So we're really pleased with the way this provision has bedded in and fully supported by officers and also Dorset Public Health in relation to the diseases that can be spread by dog feces.
Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a point, though, on that. So what this restriction does is not allow dogs to be off-lead within 5 metres of a marked sports pitch. What it doesn't prohibit, from what I understand, is dogs actually still being on that sports pitch. Now, that's where we're seeing a lot of the issues, because dog fouling is happening whilst the games aren't on, or sporting activity. And I know for myself down in Weymouth, our local football team, the Cougars, have to actually walk the pitch before starting to clear feces. And I'm just wondering if there's anywhere within this that actually prohibits dogs being on sports pitches, full stop.
Thank you. What can we just reword that a little bit, do you think?
Included, councillors, at provision 1.5.2, where it's under dog exclusion rather than a dog on lead provision. So dogs are excluded from marked sports pitches. So that is covered elsewhere in the order. It would make sense if both provisions were together, but they're separated because they're different types of provision. Thank you.
Everybody's happy with that. So we're on to 1.4 now, which is proposed provisions with dogs on lead specific locations. Janet.
Thank you, Chair. So if you could have the first slide, please. So this is dogs on lead at all times along the Rodwell Trail. So the Rodwell Trail is a trail leading from Smallmouth Beach to Western Bridge along the old railway line, approximately 2 miles long and about 2 miles wide at most of its length. It's well used by families, cyclists and dog walkers. So just short of 50% of respondents wanted to retain the restriction, and this is slightly more than the 2020 results. In terms of residents, there was a slight majority who wanted to retain the restriction, but the majority of dog owners responded wanted it removed. Given the majority support, the concentrated use by a number of diverse groups with the associated accident, incident and fouling risks, we recommend to keep the restriction in place. Recommended for inclusion.
Thank you. Does anybody want to come in on this one? No? Thank you, Janet. That's included. Oh, beg your pardon, Councillor Ty, you need to throw your hand up in the air. Come in.
Yeah, I fully support that as a cyclist. It can get really dangerous because people do ignore that rule. It needs more signs, perhaps, I don't know. But it can be very dangerous when dogs run out at you, especially if you're in a fairly large group of cyclists, which is unusual. There's most individuals and couples, but and I think it's particularly dangerous to have dogs off leads on that site. I welcome them being given, the people getting exercise with their dogs, but not being off their leads. So I'm fully in favour of that.
Thank you very much. I do sometimes wish we could have one of these for cyclists and perhaps ask them to slow down a little bit as they're going up and down past children and toddlers, which are probably more at risk than dogs who are more nimble. That's included. Janet, 1.4.2.
Sorry, can I also add that that was supported by the Friends of Rodwell Trail and Sandsford Gardens as well. So 1.4.2 is dogs on leads at all times along West Bay Harbour Walk and the promenade. So that's the next slide, please. So this is the area marked in yellow. So majority support at 61%, which is slightly lower than the 2020 consultation results, but it's still recommended for inclusion.
Thank you. Anybody want to come in on this one? Thank you, that's included. 1.4.3, which is the Lyme Regis pathway. Thank you, Janet.
So that's in that side, yeah. So dogs on lead at all times. Oh no, dogs on lead at all times in Lyme Regis. So this includes Marine Parade and Cart Road, and footpath between Charmouth Road car park and Church Beach with associated seawall. So this is map 1 in the draft order. Majority support at 63%, slightly less than 2020 consultation, but still recommended for inclusion.
Thank you. Everybody happy? Perfect. 1.4.4.
So there's dogs on lead at all times along the Esplanade, Weymouth, from Pleasure Pier to Bowlees. So that's marked in yellow, if you can see that on the map. Majority in favour at 67%, again slightly lower than 2020, recommended for inclusion.
Thank you. Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Chair. Can I just clarify, that's the Esplanade is in the promenade, not the beach currently at this point we're talking about? Thank you.
Thank you. That's included. 1.4.5, Swanage, the parade.
Dogs on lead at all times along the parade and associated roads at Swanage, which is map 4 in the draft order. 60% in favour, which is less than 2020, which was actually 75% in favour. Just over 46% of dog owners that responded to this question wanted the restriction removed, but again, with 60% in favour, recommended for inclusion.
Thank you. I see no dissent. That's included. 1.4.6.
So moving on to Studland. So we have the slide up. Studland is a site of special scientific interest and is managed by the National Trust on behalf of Natural England. For our purposes, the area stretches from the ferry route to the north, to the top, past Shell Beach and down to Knoll Beach, which includes the naturalist beach, and extends out to Ferry Road. Specific public comments can be found on page 47 of Appendix A. So 1.4.6, dogs on lead at all times. Next slide. Dogs on lead at all times in Studland. Access to Knoll Beach, including the car park and staircases, which is map 7 in the draft order. Majority support at 57%. For Studland, there were comments about the protection of wildlife, but of course the PSPO only relates to human public safety, not ecology or wildlife. Recommended for inclusion.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any comments on that one? Janet, can I just ask, the area behind the beach in terms of the dunes, they're not included in this at all?
Sorry. Hi, Jane Williams, Team Leader, Environment Protection. So the pathways from Ferry Road, where the Shell Bay car park is, there are routes through the natural area to the dune and then to the beach. They are included, but you can't actually identify them on a map because they're sand and they're not. So they are included as dogs on leads all year round. And that was requested by National Trust to begin with. So we started with what their recommendations or request was and then built that up. And you'll find that that was also included in the 2020. But we've firmed that up in how we've presented this through the consultation.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else? Right, lovely, that's included. So we're now on to 1.4.7, Janet.
And we've combined 1.4.7 and 1.4.8 together. So this is dogs on lead the 1st of May to the 30th of September, so during the summer period only, extending from Knoll Beach to the top of Shell Beach Bay. So it's the top section, which is map 9 in the order. Majority of respondents were in favour, 49% recommended for inclusion.
Thank you. Anybody? Lovely. So we're now moving then to 1.4.9, are we, Janet? So we've done the two together. Thank you.
And I think this is the area you were referring to, Carol. So dogs on leads at all times along Ferry Road, from Studland Beach Car Park to South Coast End Marker, Shell Beach National Trust, and access routes to Shell Beach, which includes the dune area. Majority support at 57%. Recommended for inclusion.
Thank you. I see no dissent. That's included. Okay, 1.4.10.
Which is dogs on leads at all times at Charmouth Lower Sea Lane car parks, the area in yellow on the slide, which is map 1 in the order, received majority support at 56%, recommended for inclusion.
Thank you. I see no dissent. That's included. We're on to 1.5 now. We're moving ahead. Thank you.
So moving on to dog exclusion areas, which starts at page 25 of the consultation report, Appendix A. So 1.5.1, recreation areas, including skate parks, tennis and basketball courts, bowling and putting greens, enclosed play parks. Don't forget, the enclosed play parks, assistance dogs are excluded there. Sporting and recreational facilities and tracks. Majority support at 64%, which is up from 2020.
Councillor Tarr.
I'd just like to, perhaps a question for Graham. Every sports field I see, as soon as the match is over or as soon as the school goes home from school day, everybody comes out with their dogs and runs all over it. What measures can we take, perhaps some sort of campaign or some way of actually enforcing this section? Because at the moment it is not enforced anywhere. All the other enforcement's really good. I'm really proud of the way everybody compliments me on the way we've got dogs under control, but not on playing fields. Sorry.
Graham, did you want to come in here?
Thank you, Chair. Councillors highlighted a specific issue with enforcement. We have limited resources in our dog control animal welfare team, and we wish we had more, but that's the financial situation we find ourselves in. And of course, Dorset's a very lovely but very expansive area, and so the dog wardens do focus their patrol and enforcement activities upon receipt of complaints rather than general patrol. So we would really encourage residents and operators of sports pitches to let us know if there's a persistent problem occurring at a particular sports pitch, and we will endeavour to get that monitored. I think it's a really good suggestion about publicity and getting the message out there. And indeed, as part of this work, when this report goes through Cabinet, we will make sure there is some really good media to back it up and to remind the public and the owners of such facilities what the provisions are. Thank you.
Of course, we do try and work with the town and parish councils as well, and there is an opportunity for the town and parish councils to authorise their officers. We will provide all the training for free, so there is that option to take as well. So.
Sorry. Thanks. I think also perhaps let's, in those areas, just check to make sure there are enough waste disposal bins, because if there aren't, perhaps that's the problem and that needs to be looked at. But if there are, then there's no reason why a responsible dog owner will not use it. Councillor Fry, I see your fingers. Go for it.
Thank you. Councillor Les, Dorset West. Janet, you mentioned about authorising town and council officers. Maybe for those people online, you'd like to explain what that means in reality, what they can then do, what powers would they have, perhaps, please?
So under the PSPO, obviously, we have the power to serve fixed penalty notices if we witness any offences. So our officers carry around fixed penalty notices books. The first thing the officers would do is just go and talk to people. just to see, you know, if they're aware of the restrictions. But if they're persistent, or if, you know, their attitude suggests that they're not going to change their behaviour, we will serve fixed penalty notices, or we have the option to serve fixed penalty notices. So how to approach members of the public, you know, the law, how to serve fixed penalty notices, that we will provide all that training to the officers of the Town Council.
And how much would a fixed penalty be? If a person does deem to be appropriate to get a fixed penalty ticket, what would that cost them?
I think the fine is set at £100, but there's a discount if you pay within 14 days. So if you pay within 14 days, it's £75.
Thank you. Councillor Coombs.
Thank you. Councillor Tony Coombs, Verwood Ward. I'm not sure if we're discussing 1.5.1, which is enclosed sporting areas, or 1.5.2, which is marked sport pitches. It seems to me what we're discussing happens on the marked sport pitches rather than enclosed. So, because I've got some comments to make on 1.5.2, which have been picked up, I want to continue on some of the comments that have already been made, but I need to know which one we're discussing.
Okay, currently we were on 1.5.1, but you're absolutely right. I think if they're enclosed areas, probably some of the comments were more relating to 1.5.2. So can we just go from 1.5.1? Can we recommend for inclusion? We're happy with that? Marvellous. Right. Janet, 1.5.2, then Tony.
Marked sports pitches. This received majority support at 60%. There was some limited commentary about only having it when the sports pitches were in use or during the playing season, or taking a pitch by pitch approach. Obviously, the latter will be quite burdensome, and the officers feel disproportionate. But so it's recommended for inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Coombs.
Okay, so to clarify, you're saying that the marked pitches themselves is a dog exclusion zone. Is that all year round? Okay. The reason why I say is because I have Potton Park in my ward, which is very similar to an area that was previously mentioned, where you have open fields with sports pitches marked on them, and the general public use that area all day, every day, at all times. And sorry, my phone's going off. To exercise their dogs. And the poo pick's been going on since my children were in the children's football teams. They're now in their mid-30s, and it's still an issue. My concern is there's no signage in the entrances to the park to tell people what the regulations are. There is no enforcement. The pitches are owned and maintained by Dorset Council, not the town or the parish. So my suggestion would be, if we haven't got the enforcement officers to deal with it, then we should be training up the ground staff that work at Potton and other places to help step in and deal with the issue. Because it's so embedded in the local psyche, it's going to take one hell of a push to get that changed, and we need to supply a separate area where dogs can run freely nearby.
Understand. Councillor Fry, did you want to come in here?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Les Fry, Dorchester West. Picking up on the point that Councillor Coombs has made, and also Councillor Tarr, I personally find it disappointing that we've only got 60% support for this particular one, it's marked sports pitches. And I suspect that's because there's been a historic and inherent use of those pitches by people walking their dogs when they shouldn't be walking on. They've got so used to walking them on there. And it's a shame. I've got boys that have played sports, and the first thing you've had to do, as Councillor Hope has previously said, is walk the pitch and pick up the dog poo. And that's just not fair. It's not hygienic. It's not right for people playing any sports on those pitches. So I would support Councillor Coombs in their comments that perhaps more signage in appropriate places, and maybe those pitches that haven't got signposts could be highlighted either to the Town Council, Parish Council, or to Dorset Council, and new signs be installed there to reinforce that message. Thank you.
Thank you. Graham, you're nodding. Come in.
Thank you, Chair. Some really good points there around sports pitches. The increased emphasis around sports pitches is because you get the play activities taking place where children, adults will fall over, and they're more likely to come into contamination with dog feces. And not to get too detailed about it, it depends on the type and nature of the feces, whether you can actually effectively clear up after your dog. And so this is why marked sports pitches do nationally have a recommendation around them for exclusion. I fully accept the enforcement messages and feedback coming out, and I also will take on board with the service the signage issues, and we're very happy to meet Councillor Coombs up at Potton Park to see what we can practically do to improve the situation. Ideally, we'd have a lot more enforcement officers, but that's not going to be the case. But let's look at what we can do alongside that to look to improve the situation.
Councillor Fry.
Thank you, Chair. And I think it comes back to we want responsible dog owners looking after the dogs and picking up behind the dogs appropriately. We shouldn't need enforcement. We should need people to pick up behind themselves. We shouldn't need to challenge anybody, particularly in areas where, such as they just shouldn't let the dogs go. As we know, some dogs have health problems, they have dietary problems, they have illnesses, and that's where we're looking at the problems that could come from them. So, yeah, let's hope everybody goes away and picks up after their dog.
Thank you. So if this one is recommended for inclusion with the added comments that have been made, and perhaps actually where we should also perhaps get some posters or something is within the local vets as well. Why not? Because that's every dog owner takes their dogs to the vets. Councillor Borden, would you like to come in here?
Thank you. Yes, it's just occurring to me, we've got an issue in Lyme Regis about sports pitches that I think must be on Dorset Council-owned land, which is not part of this PSPO at all, but it's a very, very similar issue, and it feels as if the school is using a sledgehammer to crack a nut because they've completely banned public access and a footpath that people have used for generations. So I don't know whether I know that they've been talking to the footpath team about it, but I think it is a dog. It's exactly the same issue that you've been describing. That over the years, over the generations, people have just got used to using this as a public footpath, and so maybe I could raise that with you separately, and the teams could talk.
So marked sport pitches, it comes within this. So it will be covered. So we just need to make sure that these areas in particular have the correct signage, that more is done locally. We get posters up, small signs within areas. So if we're happy, that's recommended for inclusion. So, my goodness, I'm lost now. Where are we next? Oh, 1.6. I think we're on 1.6 now, Janet. Is that right?
Yeah, if I can just make a comment. I'm not quite sure where you're referring, but if it belongs to a school, it's not a public open space. So there might be different rules around there, but we'll certainly pick up that issue. So moving on to proposed provisions for generic beach restrictions. So first one, 1.6.1, continuing the fixed time period of no dogs allowed on certain beaches from the 1st of May to the 30th of September. This received majority support at 51%, and this harmonises us with Bournemouth, Christchurch Pool and East Devon beaches. So across that coastal strip there, they also have this fixed period of time. For the 32% who didn't choose the option, there were 3 further choices. One for different dates, so we gave them the option to start at the beginning of the spring school holiday and end at the end of the summer school holiday. The other option was for different times. So in effect, we were allowing early morning walk-in and late evening walk-in. And the third was for no defined restriction period at all. So 71% of the 32 opted for the unrestricted access early morning and late evening. But as the majority wanted to continue with the fixed period 1st of May to the 30th September, we recommend that for inclusion.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody want to come in there? Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Chair. Now, at the risk of being crucified at my next town meeting, because I know they were supportive of retaining the current ones, but I feel I have to speak up because I've been inundated by local residents and dog-friendly Weymouth to sort of fight this area on their behalf. So I note that you say there's support of 51% to maintain these restrictions, 51.1%. With then 49% not agreeing to them, and then the further would like a restriction. And I think we're really missing a point here that, especially here in Weymouth, we are inundated this time of year by people that come to holiday because we're so dog friendly. We've got a fantastic scheme running with our stickers in windows so people know which businesses and hotels they can take their dogs into, eateries. And it's only seen this weekend, when I took my dog back onto the beach for the first time, hundreds of dog walkers descending to spend the day in Weymouth. When they're spending the time in Weymouth, they're spending. And I think, really, if we could look at least for the evening. And I know the biggest concern with the town council was feces and the fact that we have the beach cleaned and raked at 6 o'clock, and then potentially there's a 2-hour window where dogs could walk again. So maybe whether or not we look to say, move that 8 o'clock forward to 6 o'clock. So after the beach is raked and cleaned, there's no additional dogs allowed on there. But we would actually be opening up a new clientele to our businesses on the seafront to extend their trading opportunities, bringing revenue into the area and jobs.
I just want to be really, really clear here because I must be honest, I find myself getting a bit befuddled. So what we're talking about here is that dogs are not allowed at all during the summer restriction, but what Councillor Hope is asking for is, can we look again here at the times of an evening during the summer when dogs can use? Yes, so Graham, did you want to come in here?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Hope, for the question. This issue has come up before. I think what the purpose of the consultation is to guide officers, to guide members in their decision. But there are also other factors in relation here, and what certainly a strong factor is the economic benefit of dog owners coming into Weymouth. And there has to be that balance somewhere between that economic benefit and also providing an environment for people who don't own dogs and want to come to the beach for other purposes than to exercise their dogs. I know at Weymouth there is a specific dog exercise area. There's a section of the beach which has historically been put aside for exercise, which is supported by Weymouth Town Council. The suggestion to have a period at perhaps the start and the end of the day is one that we've looked at elsewhere and we've listened to feedback on. Our main concern with it, certainly for this time around, was that it adds yet more complexity into the times of the restrictions. And that then becomes even harder for the limited enforcement that we've got, the enforcement resource that we have. So the issue has come up before. We will keep it live on our agenda, and there will, in any event, be a further consultation in about 2.5 years' time to inform the next PSPO, and this issue undoubtedly will be considered again at that point, and we may make it part of the consultation. Thank you.
Yeah, I would also just say that we did consider it, and also there is a risk of encroachment as well into the banned period as well, because if we say, I don't know, you can walk your dog up until 7 o'clock, there's a risk that you know, that people will start encroaching into 8 o'clock. So for simplicity, it is just easier just to ban.
Yeah, Councillor Les, doors to West. And as a dog owner, I take my dog to Weymouth on occasionally. The area where you can run is quite substantial down there, and it's fenced in, so you can. It works really well on that end by the pavilion. No, but it's walled in, effectively. There's a wall around it. Dogs can't run away down there. Mine would. So it works well for me down there because not dogs need free running to be exercised. There's lots of dogs, perhaps with shorter legs than mine have got, that would you can walk them on the lead.
I appreciate what you're saying, Councillor Hope, because, you know, very often, and even on days which are really not very nice at all, where people don't want to go on the beach, but it happens to be within that exclusion period, it's frustrating. Do you think that if Weymouth Town Council were happy to perhaps... They're not happy. All right, well, OK, they're not happy. In which case, then, Councillor Hope, come back.
Sorry, Chair, just to come back on that. I think, you know, this is something on the beginning of the consultation I did ask to be included, and I'm glad to see that it has, and we had this response. But I think I can see where this is going, and like I said, I have to make this point on behalf of the residents that have contacted me and other groups that I work with in Weymouth. But I think I would like to at least point out to the Cabinet, bearing in mind there's no representation from Weymouth on the Cabinet, so this is the only chance to have the voice heard of Weymouth residents. But I would like to point out that this was a very, very close, by 1.1% favour, and this committee does recognise the economic benefits and the health benefits that relaxation could have, because I think it's important that when it goes to Cabinet for decision that they know that we've taken this seriously and reviewed. The other thing is people are walking their beach on Weymouth Beach, a dog, every evening when the sun goes down, and we're criminalising from it. We've not got feces, we've not got attacks, it's happening anyway. Why not relax it, make it that it can happen, and actually benefit from it as a town?
Thank you, Councillor Hope. Personally, I'm with you. But we've got this here, and perhaps, you know, if we're going to be looking at this in a couple of years, perhaps there's a lot more work that can be done locally to really get people on board in that respect, if people feel strongly enough. So, okay, so we're including that. We now go on to 1.7. Janet.
Yes, so we're moving on to the summer exclusion on named beaches. We'll start with 1.7.1, which is Swanage Front Beach. So this is from Mowlam Theatre, past the clock tower to the end of Shore Road, which is map 4 in the draft order, and the general public comments on page 46 of Appendix A. Majority in support at 76%. Recommended for inclusion.
Thank you. Does anybody want to? No, that's lovely. We're fine. We're including. Oh, I'm frightened now. Buckle up. We're going on to Lyme Regis. 1.7.2, Janet.
Right. So this is Lyme Regis Front Town Beach, and this is the summer restriction, which is map 3 in the order. And this is the area we're talking about is from the harbour wall to the Cobb Gate car park. And it's an area of mixture of pebbles and sand with a level access onto the sand area. General public comments on page 41 of Appendix A. This received majority support at 53%. Apologies, the figure quoted in the report for 2020 was 58%, and that was wrong. It should read 69%. So the support is actually down compared to 2020. Lyme Regis Town Council did want an all-year-round ban, but this wasn't given as an option for the reasons explained in my background comments. Recommended for inclusion.
Okay, so I'm just a little bit confused between 1.7. Can we take 1.7.2 and 1.7.3 together, or would you recommend we take them? They're completely... Okay, I'm not familiar with that. Right, okay, so 1.7.2 for inclusion recommended. Anybody? Thank you. Now we buckle up. 1.7.3.
7.3, which is Lyme Regis Front Town Beach, and this is the winter restriction of dogs on lead at all times from the 1st of October to the 30th of April. 54% of respondents did not want this restriction retained. Again, apologies, wrong figure was given for 2020 consultation, and it should read 49% didn't want this restriction. So there is actually greater support for having no restriction this year. The officer recommendation to remove this restriction is based on a number of factors. One, the findings of the public consultation, the majority in favour of removal. Two, a lack of evidence to substantiate the need to impose the provision. The Town Council's own website signposts complaints to Dorset Council for any concerns about dog-related PSPO offences and irresponsible dog behaviour. We have received 3 complaints of dog fouling in that area over the past 3 years. The police have received 1 complaint of a dog bite, and of course the police are responsible for dog-on-persons attacks. 3, to provide a harmonised set of winter provisions across the council. At the moment, as explained, Lyme Regis Front Town Beach is the only beach that currently has a winter restriction. And 4, a concern about the access for those with impaired mobility. Officers undertook a study into the ease of access for persons with mobility issues to walk dogs off lead on the adjacent beaches and green spaces in the area and found opportunities lacking. I know Councillor Baldwin has sent photos around yesterday to suggest some other areas. I think most of these are the areas we've already looked at, and in the winter period, the slipway onto the beach does tend to get very slippery. The beach itself is pebbly, and if you look at the pathways and the green spaces, there are quite a lot of stairs and uneven ground. But obviously we're happy to look at those again. Councillor Baldwin has also sent through complaints that both she and the Town Council have received. These weren't submitted as part of the consultation, so we haven't had a chance to analyse them to see, whether they've been investigated or substantiated at this point. So based on these factors, the officer recommendation is to remove the restriction.
Thank you, Janet. Now, normally we would go to non-members after members, so can I go through members first? Councillor Apothecary.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Val Apothecary, Gillingham. I'm not a dog owner, although I'm very, very fond of dogs, so I do think I'm sort of even-handed here. I would like to support Councillor Borden, the member for Lyme Regis, and the Lyme Regis Town Council. They know their town in its entirety, both our councillor and the whole of the Lyme Regis Town Council. I would like to recommend the front beach in the Dorset Council restrictions are recommended for inclusion, actually. There is, all the way through this document, this report findings, consistency is mentioned on several different aspects. So I think on that basis, I'd like to mention consistency. I do also think, actually, it's probably a bit of an unfair statement, but I think it's comparatively easy for a determined minority group to influence, almost hijack a consultation. And I just get the feeling that that might have happened in this case. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tarr.
I would just like to support all the points just made, totally. And I think, additionally, we should support town councils when they actually have to manage their own tourism in their own town. I think we should support them as a council generally. So 2 reasons. One, all the reasons just quoted, And additionally, we should listen to parish councils and ward councillors as well. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan, would you like to come in?
Thank you, Chairman. There was a reference to a concern that our consultation might have been skewed by, I think, an orchestrated campaign. So I wondered, Chairman, if it would help the committee if the officers could give you a comment on whether there is anything to suggest to us that there has been any skewing of our consultation in that way.
Thank you. Because really what we must remember also is that 54, we've gone with the majority in everything here and 54% against 49. So we do need to remember that. Janet, did you want to come in on this? And I know then Councillor Fry wants to have a word.
I'm not aware of an orchestrated campaign. I am aware that there are residents there who are vocal and members of, and on their Facebook groups and things like that, they obviously lobby other people to have the same opinion as themselves. But at the end of the day, it's a public consultation and everybody had the opportunity to vote.
Councillor Fry.
Thank you, Councillor Fry, Leicester, Dorchester West. I heard what the councillors have comment, Councillor Pothecary made and Councillor Tarr, and I support those. And I'm also grateful for Councillor Bolton coming up from Lyme Regis and Mr Sanderson coming up as well. But we have a survey in front of us and we have the figures here, and if we go against that, that causes me a little bit of concern. I accept the comments that have all been made, but if we're looking at consistency, and we do need consistency, it's an important factor of what we do. But I don't know how we can go against the consultation and vote against the other way.
Thank you. Councillor Beddoes would like to come in at this point.
Thank you ever so much for letting me come in, Chair. Sorry, I've got my camera off because I look revolting. I just wanted to ask, just to pick up on a point that Councillor Pothecary raised about consistency. The reason that this is proposed is for consistency. So I was just slightly sort of confused about that. The whole reason for this recommendation is to promote consistency. So, that we know that a lot of our residents who have dogs walk at lots of different beaches, and we wanted to have that consistency across the piece so that we could, so that it would be easier for people to remember what the restrictions are. So I just wanted to maybe I've got the wrong end on that one, but the whole reason for this is consistency. I can't even say it, consistency. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Laura. Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mainly in response to Councillor Fry's comment around, we should be listening to this survey. It's showing the opinion to remove, but we're talking 4%. And it's not a great amount, and we are here to make decisions based on the facts, and maybe the people that fill in these consultations don't have all those facts. But what we have here is the elected official and the town council from this area, who are elected representatives of that area, coming to us to ask us not to remove the current restrictions. Now, for 4% only, in the, I believe it was, difference in this, I think we do need to listen to the arguments in the room and debate. And if we are having this representation made by the local officials, then we should take that into consideration. And for 4%, I'm more likely to listen to what they've said. And if they've got it wrong, unfortunately, the public will vote them out in the next election. So let's listen to them. And they're here to represent their constituents, and they've informed us this is what their constituents want.
Thank you. I would just say, Ryan, 4% meant we had Brexit. So, Janet, would you like to come in on anything that you've heard so far? Oh, Graham, come in, Graham.
Thank you, Chair. That's really helpful. The consultation is a very worthwhile exercise, and it helps give shape and direction to officer recommendations. There are other issues, and Councillor Beddoes has returned to consistency, which is really important for officers and members, but also issues such as public health from infections from dog feces, but also we see tragically in the news issues around dog attacks, particularly focused around a certain breed at the moment. So it is always a balance, and discussions about dog control is always polarising, and I understand the arguments on both sides. So from an officer perspective, I think the margins are tight in terms of this, and I understand the arguments put forward by Lyme Regis Town Council and the respective Dorset Council councillor. It is for members to make a decision on what to recommend to Cabinet today. It could be that members of the committee wish to follow the officer recommendation but put a review in place after the first full year of operation of the new PSPO. That would be one opportunity to see how things go for a period of time and have an agreed date by which it would come back to this committee. And then if there were issues with the provision or the provision being removed, then we could make an amendment to the order. That is allowable in law. Thank you.
And that's really very useful. Councillor, does any other member wish to speak at this point? Councillor Borden, would you like to come in and speak at all?
Thank you, Chairman. And apologies for getting a bit passionate about this, and thank you to those members of the committee in the room supporting the views of the locally elected representatives. I will be losing some votes next time round, that's for sure. Happily, people in the rest of the country do not get to vote whether David and myself are re-elected next year. That's what's happening in this consultation. By not identifying the people that are resident in Lyme Regis and Lyme Regis, Up Lyme, Charmouth, whichever, however you define, last time it was DT7 postcodes, we were clearly able to see a difference of something like 20% in the responses from the local residents compared to the total in the survey, because obviously we get a lot of visitors. Since then, we have had an extremely well-organised pro-doggy campaign. And I apologise for all of the short notice. I've hardly slept since this has come out, in order to reflect genuinely the views of people in town about this. If you look at those maps, don't give you an indication. That sandy beach is about, 120 metres wide? How much does that compare to Weymouth and Swanage and the Studland beaches? We're talking miles over there, not metres. We have a really, really small sandy beach in Lyme. It is always busy. It's too busy for most of us to enjoy in the summer. So in the winter, that's the time when we go down with our families and with our visitors. It's terrifying when the dogs are running loose. I'm a dog lover. I've always lived with dogs until I've been living on my own. And even then, I look after my mum's dog when she was ill. And I know the joy of letting the dogs run loose on the beach, but not in the numbers that we now have, because it's where families go to enjoy the facilities. I just want to say so on the question of short notice, this came out last Wednesday. We've had effectively 2 working days to respond to this. That feels really unfair. Now, a lot of people have said to me they felt that the questionnaire was really confusing. They felt it was really biased. Both sides felt it was biased, so I won't go down that one. But so the report said that the Lyme Regis Town Council's view of a preference for an all-year-round ban, that wasn't even included in the questionnaire for people to answer, because it was not seen as a proportionate choice, I think was the words. That feels really insulting. The time that we've given has been limited. to respond, so that I'd hope to inform the committee members about the issues. I don't know how big Swanage Beach is and Weymouth Beach, but it's clearly we're talking about widely differing spaces, and yeah, I'm really concerned about the fact that the locals' votes are hidden. And could I refer you to Councillor Rob Smith from Lyme Regis Town Council sent in a statement. And this is where my brain's going to start going as well. But he said, firstly, 54% in favour is a very narrow majority for a small sample size and should not lead to an automatic revision of restrictions. If 62% of respondents were dog owners and 54% of respondents were in favour of lifting restrictions, then we can estimate at most that 54 divided by 64, i.e. 84% of dog owners are in favour and 16% of dog owners are opposed. If 25% of households are dog owners, which is a national statistic, I understand, then 84% of 25% is 21% of the population actually in favour of dogs off the lead, as opposed to 79% against. So I'll leave you with that one, because reading that makes my brain fry. So I'm very concerned about the two assumptions that the officers made in coming to the conclusion that families and children do not use the beach from October to May. We do. And that's actually, from local point of view, that's the time when we can use the beach. I've mentioned I will not be able to take my grandson on the beach in Lyme Regis in the winter if dogs are allowed to run loose. It is not safe. And the assumption that there are no other suitable spaces for dogs, I'm sorry, I challenge that as well. I walked around and I'd sent loads of photographs in the document because I thought it'd be quicker for you to look at photographs, but I didn't know until late last night that they hadn't been sent, so I don't know how many of you have seen them, but I walked around for less than 2 hours and took hundreds of photographs of places that I thought were absolutely fine to let dogs off leads, including the 2 other beaches at low tide. I know they're not great at high tide, and obviously the east beaches, the water comes right up, but at low tide, there's absolutely masses of space for dogs to run around loose. So I think the others, Councillor Larkham, I know, made the point that quite strongly that for those of you that don't know, our town front beaches were both created as part of the huge coastal protection scheme. So they're man-made beaches, and the majority of both of the beaches don't get washed by the sea. So where some people say, oh, it's fine because the dog poop gets washed away, it doesn't. It does on the other big beaches where the dogs can go, but not on these artificial beaches. It's interesting that Graham was talking about the danger of infection for children outside sports pitches. Why doesn't that apply on beaches? It's exactly the same thing. Beaches that are not washed at all, why is that concern about children's health at the side of sports pitches? Why does that not apply to us in Lyme Regis? And also just general background of Lyme Regis, we've got quite a polarised population. High visitor numbers and some relatively wealthy residents seem to conceal the fact that the majority of the population are actually really struggling. The latest stats I have show that we have 37% who are over 65. That's twice the national average. Dorset's is 29% by comparison. So we have a lot of old people. We have a lot of people who live on their own. And I fully appreciate the importance of dogs as, social benefit. And in the town council, I have been a lone voice saying, I think we should, I was pleased that Dorset recommended the on leads restriction last time round because I thought it was a fair compromise. 20% of our children are growing up in low-income households. Depression is by far and away the biggest health concern, with asthma a close second. So COVID taught us the importance of fresh air and exercise and access to green spaces and beaches and natural spaces. Would Dorset Council really jeopardise the safety and well-being of our ageing population and our young people in excluding them, in effect, from using our town beaches by allowing dogs to run loose? there is evidence of the Facebook pages I think I sent has shown evidence that the organisers of the campaign have they have the benefit of a shop in town. They produce beautiful posters, so everybody was encouraged to participate in the consultation. They also, I think the Kennel Club were promoting the consultation at dog shows around the country. Now, all of these, we don't know, do we? Because they haven't been separated out. Sorry, and yes, the other thing is I believe that they've been sending photographs over the last couple of years of the sandy beach being empty over the winter. I just think that given, as others have said, the majority is very slim. We know that people around the country have been encouraged to participate in the survey. And I just would feel very, very, very disappointed indeed. Oh, and the issue is, sorry, the issue is safety. So it's in the national news. This is last week. Bridport and Lyme Regis and Bridport News. Cat killed in attack by dog. And somebody died yesterday. A man was killed by dogs. I'm sorry, but letting them all run loose on Lyme Regis Town Beach is really, really not fair on on any of us. And I think it would be very disrespectful to the views of the locally elected representatives. Thank you.
Phew. I'm almost inclined to say, should we have a break now? But we're not. We're going for it. Jonathan.
Chairman, could I just confirm what you were told earlier in the meeting? Because there have been references to the national concerns and deaths in other parts of the country and anxiety that people feel. There has been one reported dog bite to Dorset Police on that beach in the last 3 years. So I think it's important to keep that in perspective and not to alarm people unnecessarily. That's right. I think, look, we've got a very difficult one here, but there are certain things we have to consider. Belinda talked about the higher percentage of older people. Well, older people still have dogs and they want to be able to get onto a beach and so on and so forth. And if Janet is correct in saying that the other beach doesn't have good access, it's slippery, that will prevent them from doing so. So we have two possibilities here that we can look at, and it will be good to see where people want to go. We either stick with an all-year-round ban, or we suggest that we go for a one-winter trial and we look at the response, we look how this has gone, and it comes back to this committee, not to scrutiny, to this committee, so that we can review and decide which way we should go. So I think we're at this point, and it would really be quite good to have an idea as to which way members wanted to go on this, please. Councillor Apothecary, you first stated that you were minded to support Councillor Borden and the Town Council. Can I just ask whether that's the case, or whether you would be minded to support a one winter trial so that it came back to this committee? Can I see where you're standing on this one, please?
Thank you. Thank you. I realise it seems a bit intransigent, but no, I would prefer to not recommend this for inclusion. I'm looking at the whole list, and after each point it says recommended for inclusion, blah, 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 and we come down to 1.7.3. Absolutely, and that's the consistency bit I was referring to. Thank you. I'm recommending it for inclusion, the same as all the other points we're discussing. Thank you.
Councillor Tarr?
Recommending it for inclusion, especially as the consistency should be with BCP, who I believe do have inclusion. So I think we should go along with the general trend in the county, and we should support local councils. That's my reason.
What you are both saying is that dogs should be on a lead all year round on their baits. That's what you're both saying. That's what you're saying there. Okay, okay. Now, sorry, Belinda. Oh God.
A little bit. I think that the summer ban has been agreed. So, but this one is specifically about whether the dogs can go on the beach in the winter on leads. Because where I was talking about consistency was just that it's, you know, we've had this for the last PSPO, and I think if we keep chopping and changing, it'll just be incredibly confusing.
So so Councillor Puthgary, Councillor Tarr are saying that they want dogs to stay on leads during the winter period. We haven't gone round everybody else. Okay, let me right. Okay, basically, the officer's report is to say that dogs can be off leads during the winter period on Lyme Regis Town Front Beach. Obviously, we've heard from Town Council and so on. Okay, so basically Val and Roland have said they are going with the Town Council that they should be on leads during the winter period. The other option is to look at the trial for a month. You're going for the trial. Ryan, I'm coming to you next.
I'm happy to support the proposal on the table, which is to stay as currently is and exclude dogs off lead, so remain on lead. Val's proposal, basically.
I would also support keeping dogs on leads during the winter months.
See, I'm struggling with this. I know that Councillor Bowden said that they had only had this 2 working days, but there was a chance during the consultation process for all this to come in and be submitted. We have followed the officer's recommendation everywhere else. The figures, even though it's only 4%, there is comments about a campaign on this, but we don't have that evidence at this time. I think that sort of research can be carried out later on and had a look at. So I would be going against this, what the proposal is here by Councillor Puthgary, because I think we should be following the officer recommendation and still possibly having the trial.
Sorry, Chair, I think there's a sound issue. Online, we can't hear you. No, we can't.
Laura, can you hear me?
Yep, that's better.
Oh, okay.
I can hear now.
Okay. Councillor Rowe.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that my point of following what the officer's analysis of the consultation is that if we don't follow that, and it was 54%, then consultations in the future may not be taken seriously by the public, and that is really, really concerning.
Thank you. I agree with you. Personally, I would like to see a winter's trial. I think as we are not a decision-making committee, we can simply recommend, and I think we're sort of reasonably split with the thoughts of dogs being on leads on Lyme Regis and trying it for a year. So, Laura, I'm coming to you right now. Are you happy that we throw this back to Cabinet and people can make their representations to Cabinet's meeting on this for Cabinet to make the final decision? Because I think realistically we're fairly split. Ryan, did you just want to come in here?
Yeah, just a point of order, Chair. Of my opinion, sorry, I understand we've had a proposal and a seconder on this point. I'm sorry, I think Councillor Pothecray proposed not to, and it was seconded by Councillor Tarr.
I'm not sure we took that as a firm proposal. Jonathan, could I ask you to come in?
Chairman, I think quite simply then, if we ask Councillor Pothecray and Councillor Tarr, are they making, is the one making a definite proposal and the other seconding it? Because if they are, then you need to put that to a vote, and then you would be putting forward a definite position to Cabinet from this committee, but one that the Cabinet might not necessarily then agree with.
Councillor Pothecray, are you happy to make that a firm proposal? Thank you. Councillor Tarr, affirm. Okay, so the proposal is that dogs should stay on lead during the winter time on the beach in Lyme Regis. All those in favour, please show. Okay, and those against and in favour of a trial? 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. Then that will be passed through to Cabinet, but I would still recommend that people make representations, write your letters, ask questions, attend Cabinet, and that's fine. Thank you. I'd like to move on now. We're now on Chiddock 1.7.4, Janet.
Thank you, Chair. So Chiddock Seatown Beach, which is map 5 in the order, it includes the beach area around the Blue Anchor pub. There were no grouped comments about this proposal in Appendix A, so we take this to say that there weren't any specific comments for this area. The results were similar to 2020 with no overall majority. The landowner is Wraxall Estate, who made no representation this time but wanted the restriction in 2020. So it's recommended to keep the status quo and include the restriction.
Thank you very much. Anybody? No, that's included. 1.7.5.
Which is West Bay, East and West Beaches. This is map 2 in the order. On the western side between the two groins, and on the eastern side from the harbour wall to the end of the beach car park. General public comments are found on page 47 of Appendix A. Majority support at 59%. The question was different in 2020, so we don't really have a comparable figure for you, but recommended for inclusion.
Thank you. Any representations? No, that's included. 1.7.6.
Jarmouth West Beach, which is map 1, and this extends from the River Chart outward westwards past the Heritage Centre. General public comments on page 44, Appendix A. Very small majority of 51% in favour of retaining. No commentary from the Parish Council, although they wanted the restriction in 2020. The East Beach remains unrestricted, so recommended for inclusion.
Thank you. Councillor Borden.
Hi, thank you for getting my name right. The Parish Council, I've had a confirmation from them that they're happy with the officer's recommendation, but they did confirm that they did put into the consultation. So I'm surprised to hear that. Ah, I see. Okay. Anyway, but just to pass on that they put that into the. They told me they put it into the consultation and they're happy with the recommendation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. In which case that's recommended. And our final one, 1.7.7.
which is Weymouth Central Beach, which is map 6 in the draft order, from the pavilion end to Green Hill Groin, but it excludes the all year round exercise area towards the pavilion end. General public comments on page 44 of Appendix A received majority support of 67%, which is higher than 2020, is supported by Weymouth Town Council, recommended for inclusion.
Thank you. Anybody? No. Janet, we got there in the end. You need to go and have a good cup of coffee now, or a stiff gin. Thank you very much, everybody, on that one.
Thank you.
They're solving most of these problems without us knowing anything about it. I always recommend.
Sorry.
I always recommend people that they go to you to sort things out online, preferably. And it's been a good service where we've done that. It has worked. So thank you very much for that. Secondly, I'd like to compliment the chairman for dealing the way they dealt with this meeting, because I've been in frequent meetings where I've spoken as the ward councillor before the meeting. Completely erroneous facts and figures are being produced during the meeting, and we have our hands held behind our backs. We can't correct those errors. And the way that you organised today's meeting, where the local representative was allowed to speak afterwards and to join in the conversation, was far more democratic than a normal system which we've had in our planning meetings during the last 4 years. So thank you very much for that.
If it's all right with you, I'm going to go whoop, whoop. Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm just wondering if this is an opportunity before we sum up on this item, just to recognise, the immense pressure this service is under with the lack of provision they have. I think we've got 2.5 dog wardens, four now, for the whole of Dorset. They cannot be everywhere. It's an impossible task to enforce this PSPO because they have other responsibilities that they have to do as a priority. So I think it's worth a note to Cabinet along with this, that they do consider within budget setting whether there is any additional funds that could be held in this direction to help enforce this PSPO, because otherwise it's been a very, very long process. It's a tool that we can use, but it's pretty much ineffective without enforcement.
Thank you. I think we definitely have to do more to educate our residents and poor dog ownerships. I've always have dog poo bags wherever I go and I pick up other people's. We just have to shout it out. And maybe that's an advertising campaign. Shout it out. If you haven't picked it up, do so. Jonathan.
Yeah, Chairman, could I just make a point about how the committees work and the run? Sorry, is that right? And the running order, please, because I think it works really well here in your committee for ward councillors to come in after the committee members have spoken. There is a particular reason why it happens the other way around in the planning committees. And that is about ward members making representations to a planning committee alongside those that members of the public are making, and then the committee having to deliberate and make a decision about people's rights and freedoms and the applicant versus objectors. So we do it in a particular way in the planning committees for a very particular reason, and it would not work and provide a fair, legally defensible outcome if we were to switch that around there.
Thank you, Jonathan. That's noted, absolutely. And I sit on planning committee along with my colleague here, Les. We know how that works, so thank you. Oh, Councillor Coombs.
I chair planning committee.
Can we move on? We're on to item 8, our overview committee work programme. There is a little bit of, we're not too sure what's going to be happening time-wise with the fixed penalty notice item. There is a little bit of confusion over that, so we wait with bated breath. There is a current review of the policy library going on, and we're waiting for that to come back. But would anybody like to come in on any of this? Just noted. Let's just note it. Noted. Okay, Cabinet Forward Plan as well. Anybody like to come in on the Cabinet Forward Plan? Noted. Item 9, urgent items. I think the only urgent thing is coffee going on at the moment. Item 10, exempt. We have no exempt business. So this meeting is closed at 11:50. Thank you very much, everybody. Good meeting.